And I would very much like to welcome you, Rob, to be here, Rob Brandsma, for sharing with us your work on mindfulness and sustainability. And you're a real, very seasoned mindfulness teacher and also a teacher trainer. We really salute you for the work you're doing for our colleagues in Ukraine, who really are in need of having more mindfulness teachers and who do a wonderful job there. And you and Mila de Koning have been very instrumental in that. So with when we look at what Jamie called the multi-crisis, we have a climate crisis, we have a crisis of peace, we have a crisis of economics, and we have a crisis of meaning. They all seem to be connected. Tonight we have the spotlight on the crisis of sustainability, and I invite you to, if you want to combine and make the links to the other crises, and to tell us about yourself and how you came to do this, why your choice for this. If that fits into your presentation, then don't start with it. Do it whenever it fits you. Dear colleagues, tonight, some of you have been here at AM Exchange more often, and you're used to us having a lot of time for interaction. We will do our best to do that, but tonight is a bit exceptional because there is also a lot of information to be conveyed. And in order to make that possible, Rob and I decided that the presentation would be a bit longer because we really want to listen to what Rob has to tell us. If there is anything that impedes you in understanding the next step that Rob is going to then put it in the chat. And I will keep an eye on the chat and inform you, Rob, that someone really needs a bit clarification before you move on. Other remarks, compliments, questions, whatever else you can postpone, please either drop it in the chat with a keyword to not disturb your own concentration and also not of the others, and we will attend to that later. We have 1.5 hours together, and within those 1.5 hours, there will also be time for breakout groups to be able to really have the possibility to see where you are at this moment. And with this, I would like to pass on to you, Rob, to do whatever you have set as your priority at this moment, and to thank you in advance. I'm very curious myself as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Katarina. And again, thanks for the invitation. Yeah, some of you may know my name at least, because I also have a book out, which is called the Mindfulness Teacher Training Guide, which is actually not just translated in English, but also many other European languages, such as Italian, German, and Dutch, and Spanish also. And yes, I'm working in the Netherlands as a teacher trainer for over a decade now, and I've been developing more programs in the past. And tonight, the theme of the workshop or the event is a mindful path through the ecological crisis. And I discussed with Catherine that I would like to be a bit more talkative, to transfer a bit more information, because I would like to explain a bit more about how I see how these two things, mindfulness and the ecological crisis, how they can come together. It's not evident for many people right from the start. And I would like to explain a bit more about this program I have developed, which I tend to call mindfulness for the world, to sort of stress the fact that, to my feeling today, we cannot afford ourselves to keep the mindfulness within the personal bubble or within the bubble of personal development. That stays still very valuable and important, but as Katharina said, there's so much happening in the world on a really existential level that we need all our abilities to wisely respond to that. So hence the title, Mindfulness for the World. Of course, tonight can only be a very short introduction. We have 1.5 hours. And it will be also, I will be explaining a bit about this training, which will be available in English actually next year. In June, there will be an English intensive version in Germany. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind, probably. But actually, I would like to start by thanking you for being here, not just for me, but for offering your dedicated time tonight to the ecological crisis. Because the world needs us really to stop turning away and to wake up to the climate crisis. This is the greatest crisis of our times. And we can actually do something about it. As I see it, we all are somewhere on our path to awakening to the climate crisis, because it's not going to go away. So we need to face it sooner or later. And yeah, maybe it's good, as Katharina said, to start with myself and to share something about my own path. Because you may have heard other paths of awakening. Paths of awakening often show moments of accelerations. And facing climate change, I tend to call these the accelerative deepening insights climate shocks, moments that the reality really hits you on a deeper level. And for me, that was it was a shock like that about 5 or 6 years ago, when I was actually babysitting my youngest grandson, who was just 2 years old, and I was reading my first real book about climate. It was a book of David Wallace Wells. It's a classic. It's called The Inhabitable Earth, and it contained all these scenarios of how things might change towards the end of the century. That's how we spoke about it 5 or 10 years ago. So I was reading that, and still with a bit of distance, because I felt me myself, I'm 65 right now. So dates like 2050 or 2100, it feels for me not really actual and quite far away. But then all of a sudden, because my grandson was playing at the other side of the room and I had some time to read, and then all of a sudden I realized that if my grandson would reach the medium age of his generation, about 80 years old, this would be his personal future I was reading about. And on that moment, it really hit me. It really shook me. It really, came home to me, this reality that actually this book or this future, which I felt quite distant still, was about actually what I love the most in the world, my children, my grandchildren. So even now, when I'm telling it, I can feel it in my bones, it can be a physical shock even. And awakening can happen in these bigger moments of shocks of awareness, but also go more gradually in small steps. And if you are worried about climate crisis, and I presume you do because you came to this workshop, I'm sure you can relate to these moments that You take in some information, or you're just even, looking at beautiful nature and realizing its vulnerability these days. But especially taking in some news about how fast things go right now in the climate and the ecological crisis in general, that you suddenly realize, oh shit, is it really that bad? That it really hits you at a moment? Those are these moments that your heart tends to sink, and they feel a bit like a wet towel in the face. So I would like to start there. I've told something about my experience with that, and I had more of them. But since we tend to learn mindfulness on an experience-based level, I would like to ask you to take a few minutes for yourself in small groups. I think we're 6 or so we can go out in 2 groups of 3, and really to take some time to share, to speak out your truth about what comes up for you when you start a sentence, when I think about the future of the world, ... So when you express that, and then really you can drop into silence for a moment and really speak, be courageous and speak from your heart. What comes up then? So I would like to invite you in a few moments to go to a small group and take some time. We will have 10 minutes, so everyone will have about 3 minutes to share. And then really to take time to, you start with the one question, one simple sentence like, when I think about the future of the world, then, and then you leave it open, and then you listen sort of within what comes up for you, and simply speak that. And don't be afraid also to take some silence or take some pause, so you can really mindfully express yourself. And after a few minutes, you hand over to your companion, and so see if you can make in those 10 minutes a round of 3 persons. You will see on the right upper hand timer when it's about time, and then you thank each other, and you will come back in the big room. Yeah, are we ready to go out for an exchange for a few minutes? Katarina, are you ready with the setting up the groups? Have a good sharing.
Have you received an invitation?
Yes, I have.
All of you? Okay. Thanks a lot.
Oh, they're already, yeah. Yes.
Um,
Hello, Katarina. But, thank you. But it feels so, and then a lot of feelings comes up. I feel so alone in this, or what does my individual action means? And I will come to those feelings in a minute. But first, let's take a moment to face the crisis as it is. It is rightly so that we are worried. As to the temperature, for example, every time again, new records are broken. This year, again, for the first year, we will be above 1.5 Celsius global warming. And with that raise of temperature, also tipping points in the climate and in our ecological system will get wobbly. We're very close to losing the Amazon and the coral reefs and the ice sheets on Greenland and Antarctica, not for the next year, but in the coming decades. And tipping points are, a one-way direction. In a few decades, even the North Pole may be gone, at least in summertime. And it's not just the climate. Pollution is now starting to affect our health. Think about the rise of Parkinson's disease. And key animal species are dying out. And as you hear, most of these things are irreversible. We cannot go back. So just sense how this feels, how this lands with you for a moment. How it feels in the body, how the mind tends to start running, what you're doing, what you should do, what solution could be, and how our emotions may come up. Emotions of anxiety or anger or guilt or the tendency to turn away. And so these, how we tend to react to the climate crisis, the thoughts and feelings that come up, they tend to overwhelm us. That's why they need mindful care and attention. We really need to take care of ourselves first. But also, the world needs us. The world needs our best awareness and our best energy and our best action right now. So this is really a conundrum, a paradox, a difficulty. I just said before, many people are worried and only few come into action. You might wonder, how does it come? Well, here's the answer. Research shows that our emotional reactivity is the biggest barrier to relating wisely to the eco crisis. And in a way, it makes sense. First, we have aversion against difficult emotions, right? We tend to avoid them. We don't want to go there. So that's what comes up first. People tend to look away or only cognitively process the information. It's called disavowal, that you don't want to really let it in because then you get a whole splash of difficult emotions or one of them. And if we can avoid them, our first reaction, our reactivity says, don't go there. And secondly, climate news is alarming. And what do alarms do? They set off our stress reaction. So our energy moves away from the prefrontal cortex to go to our survival brain system, flight, fight, freeze. And these reactions are exactly opposite of what a wise response to the climate crisis needs. Because the climate crisis presents itself as a complex and paradoxical thing, because it's near and it's distant, it's moving slow. If you look outside today, there was snow in Holland, but yet I know about the 1.55% this year. So it's going fast and slow at the same time. It's about now, but it's also about the future, about my grandchildren, which I felt like, so far away, but also very close. And it's also a systems problem. But I feel the load and the guilt individually. So there are many paradoxes there. It's very difficult to get our heads around it, our minds around it. It's very complex. It's a complex crisis. So we need the best of our abilities and not our reptile brain with our systems of stress and avoidance and overwhelm. So that's really an important thing for me to go to look to the power of mindfulness, because if we cannot respond with the best of our human capacities, humanity simply won't make it. Because the crisis is really complex on many levels. It's already happening. So if we go in our alarm state or our avoidance state, we won't make it at all. Yes, there's urgency, but paradoxically, we need first to step back a bit. We need to cultivate space and patience in order to be able to access our wider abilities. And that's where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is a superpower for this situation. It can help us to stop and feel and come back to our senses. So a big part of responding wisely to the climate crisis is first not getting lost in our reactivity, which also means not to forget about what we need personally first. We call that radical self-care in the training, the Mindfulness for the World training. So one part of this training is turning towards the difficult, and we know that as mindfulness teachers, practitioners. Because if you really want to relate and respond wisely to something, you first need to know what it is. James Baldwin famously said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." So we need our capacities to be able to face this difficult predicament first. And that's where mindfulness can help us to sort of resource ourselves and open ourselves to the difficulty. Taking good care of ourselves. And that's really a mindfulness practice. And in the training, we have a lot of elements of this self-care. First of all, we have grounding practices. And we know that from every mindfulness training, you know, we can switch from perception, even the perception of almost overwhelming difficulty, to the sense of being present here and now, which is also a real part of our reality. It's actually there. We don't go off in a fantasy. We go to the sensation of the feet of the floor, or what we can feel in temperature with our skin. So that's one. The other one is connection with others. It's really a group training to share our difficulties and pain. It can be so soothing. Knowing that you are not alone, that you are not crazy with these worries and not knowing what to do and all these emotions, that it's part of common humanity. We need to feel that in a physical way. So connection is very important. We work a lot in small groups. We work with listening and conversation elements. And we sit in a circle, like in an MBSR training. And then there's the connection of nature, which is also very grounding, but nature also has this holding capacity. We go to nature when we are grieving, when we are stressed, when we need healing. And nature is also inspiring. That's why our training in the intensive setting in English will be in the Schwarzwald, in Germany, in the forest, in the beauty of nature. Very supportive. And last, very important, we turn to what is nourishing, to what really feels good. We allow ourselves to also open to what feels good to us. Nature can be one aspect, but what about creativity or poetry or painting or wonder about the beauty of what is all around us and which is still there? There's so much beauty in the world. So mindfully awakening to the climate crisis also involves asking our hearts what we really need to be nourished persons, to become fully alive. Otherwise, we need to be nourished in order to face this difficult situation. It's about finding this sweet spot between opening to the difficult and nourishing ourselves with the beauty of life, which is always right there at our fingertips. For myself, lately, I often use this personal mantra when, which I really don't want to forget. And even on difficult days, I try to remember myself and just say to myself, this day is a miracle. Sounds very simple, but even if the day doesn't go my way, or even if I read something difficult, or I relate to a difficult situation, or I'm hurt, I have pain, for example, a headache, and then still I can remember myself, but even today, this day is a miracle. So these are beautiful things to sort of take our systems out of getting locked into a difficulty mode. There is no awakening to the climate crisis without waking up to ourselves, to what really matters to us, to what really nourishes us. So we make this really a practice in our training, and really, sort of a dialectic to go from the personal, opening to the difficult in the world, and then again relating and leaning back and connecting to what we need. If you like, we could do a small meditation in this moment to practice of a small practice in this. And let's start with the basic one, which I mentioned, the grounding part. I'd like to invite you for a short meditation, which is called In the Here and Now, It Is Okay. In the here and now, it is okay. So finding your seat, your position, you might even want to close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. Allowing the silence to come in. Letting all the words have been spoken for what they are right now, this moment. Dropping into our bodies. Connecting to this sense of gravity, pulling the body, feeling supported by the earth, feet on the floor, buttocks in the seat. You might want to connect to the breath for a moment, following the in-breath and noticing the out-breath as it comes along. And then I would like to invite you to bring to mind an image of an extreme weather event related to climate change. Perhaps the image of drought or a wildfire, or a hurricane or a flooding. Just seeing what this brings right now to your mind's eye. And the first images that come up are good to work with. And what if you zoom in, if you make it a bit more clear, what do you see? Maybe people fleeing, or animals, or the sight of destroyed homes, or uprooted trees, or a scorched world. So whatever it is, see if you can draw it a bit closer, actually zoom into it before your mind's eye. And then also noticing the feelings that arise with that image. Maybe sadness, or stress, or numbness, not knowing so much what you feel, whatever. Then maybe you can feel it at a certain point certain place in the body also, maybe the stomach, the legs, or the cheeks getting warm. And then realizing that these feelings arise because you care. And that's a beautiful human quality. We hurt what happens to the earth, does pain to us because we care. That's also an important element to actually honoring our pain, because it's a pain which comes from love, from care, because we care. And then see if you can shift your attention right now from the feelings and the images to your senses. For example, the sounds in this moment in the room around you, or maybe a taste which is still palpable, feelable in your mouth, of maybe the coffee you drank, or the air, the temperature of the air on your skin, or simply how it feels to connect with the feet to the floor. So now, shifting your attention, bringing it to the sensory experience that is easiest for you. And if you don't know where to go, the most safe place is the ground, feet on the ground. So zooming into that physical experience of the body, senses. And then exploring that experience. How does that feel? Here and now, presence in the body with the senses. For most of us, it may actually feel quite okay. In this moment, being with this sensory experience, it's quite okay, or at least neutral. And compared to a difficult experience, neutral is already soothing. It has that cooling effect. So focusing the attention on a sensory or bodily experience, which is easy for you, and then realizing this experience here and now is actually quite okay to be. And then, if you like, you might even want to play a bit with that, experimenting in going back and forth, just to explore. So going back to that difficult image again, may not be so strong as at the beginning, but see if you can connect with it again. Letting it in, opening to it for like 5 or 10 seconds. And when you're ready, you have it enough for the taste, then returning to this experience of presence in the here and now. And you can do it once again. If you like, you can also stay with this embodied sense of presence. So what we are actually practicing is to acknowledge this difficult reality and what it does to us without being swiped away, by switching to a cooler experience in the here and now. In that way, we don't need to get overwhelmed by difficult images or difficult experiences. We can maintain balance, create space, even in emotionally challenging moments. And that's helpful when we are facing the effects of climate change. And then finally, expanding your awareness to the whole body, sitting, resting in awareness for 1 or 2 or 3 more moments. Allowing yourself to be just as you are right now. Whatever you feel right now is okay. And then in your own time and in your own way, finishing this meditation. And when you're ready, connecting to the screen again. Yeah. This is just a small taster of practicing finding groundedness when we are facing the difficult reality of the ecological crisis. I hope there's enough groundedness enough to continue a bit more. I would like to tell you a bit more about the course Mindfulness for the World. So this course actually serves a dual goal. We apply mindfulness to what we need and to what the world needs in an iterative way, a dialectic. So we avoid overwhelm, we keep our balance, and the best of our capacities available while we are facing the reality of climate change. Isn't that a superpower? And this is really unique in the Mindfulness for the World program. This is this yin and yang moment between nourishing ourselves and nourishing this world, and nourishing the world. For many participants, it's really new to hear that you are allowed to practice radical self-care because it is difficult. So this training is not so much about concepts, but much more about embodiment. How to live this, how to live a meaningful and joyful life in the midst of this predicament without looking away. That's the challenge of our day and age. In practical terms, it's a step-by-step experience-based program to be followed either in a 9-week regular training setting or a 6-day intensive retreat setting. And yes, we are facing difficulties, so you get a deep insight in how the beauty of our planet is being threatened by warming, pollution, extinction. And we create a big space for reception and processing. And the tools, they may sound very common to you. Meditation, contemplation, sharing, a lot of sharing, inside dialogue, which is actually, both. It's connecting and it's personal exploration, poetry, and yes, radical joy. We even dance at the end of sessions. And finally, in the second half of the training, we move to this question of action orientations, which is actually a very personal question. It's a question about what can I give with my particular talents and energy to protect the beauty of this unique planet. We have been running this program now for over a year in Holland, and research by the University of Groningen shows that participants report that they feel lighter after the course, which also sounds like a paradox. We dive deep into how difficult it is, and actually they feel feel lighter afterwards. Many participants spontaneously report that they look forward for the next session, while they know, it's going to be just another sliver of this difficult predicament, a complex situation, which is also going to be presented with the invitation to relate to it. And still, people want to relate to it, and somehow this warm bath of connection and contemplation helps to find a way to connect with it. After the training, people report they have a deeper understanding of what's going on, and they experience more energy and more direction to contribute to the solutions from their position in their lives. And especially they report that working in a group together was very healing. This aspect of common humanity. Which reminds me of a quote of the Dalai Lama, who was asked about the climate crisis. He said, "The answer to this problem is community." It can sometimes be so simply right head on. So the answer to this problem is community. We do need to do it together. And towards the end of the program, we also look at a vision. We take time to create a vision. Because this question, how can I support, is also a question like, what are you doing it for? We are so trained in also, especially in the climate change protests, to be against a lot of things. But it's very good also to know what you are doing it for. Which makes me think of, Martin Luther King. What he made multitudes move, but not by saying what he was against racism, but by saying, I have a dream, by speaking his vision, his dream. And that make people move. So what do we want? What world do we want? And sometimes it helps. I mean, we can have these big visions with super big concepts like peace and everybody happy. But sometimes a vision can be stronger by really making it concrete. And I always have to think about the whales. Then I come from Holland, as you may know, and I was raised in right behind the dunes, very close to the sea. And only recently I learned that from the point where I, actually came almost every week to look at the sea, the tip of the dunes, 2 centuries ago, people came to watch the track of the whales. The North Sea was actually full of whales. We as humans, we have chased 98% of the whales right now. So, one aspect of, what if we get it right, for me would be to see the whales back in the ocean and take their place again in the natural system. So as we move closely towards the session, I would like you also for a brief moment to focus on what if we get it right. So maybe again, for a moment, not for a meditation, but just for a contemplation, visualization, to close your eyes again for a moment. And well, let's drop in silence just for helping us to switch, to move to these lower parts of our deeper wisdom, the heart, the belly, silence there, a deeper knowing. So when uh, Reverend King spoke to his big audience and he said, "I have a dream," he spoke of a vision. And we can get it right. We have all the capacities of human beings and the technology to get it right. So you for yourself, and the invitation is, what do you see if you imagine a world where we got it right? What arises before your mind's eye? Maybe flourishing forests, beautiful animals, but also maybe cities which are filled with people who are lighter in their way they move around or smile more, or how do schools look or playgrounds. And again, with these visualizations, it's helpful at a certain point to zoom into one picture. Just pick one thing which really speaks to you, like my image of the whales, for example, which really personifies a world where you would want to give your best energy for to get there. And if you have that image, just see if you can make it as lively as possible with details, sounds, colors, allowing yourself even to enjoy that scenery. Maybe an inner smile arises, or you feel your eyes or eyelids soften. What if we get it right? Yes, another world is possible. Enjoying this image, a direction to go to. And of course, now also comes a moment that we have to, for the moment, to say goodbye to this image, to this visualization. Let it slowly move to the background and coming back to the bodily sense of being present again. Maybe experiencing a full in-breath and a full out-breath. And then at a certain moment, opening the eyes again, whenever you're ready, connecting, reconnecting to the screen. And then I'm curious to hear a bit about this. And let's use the chat again. So my invitation would be to put in 1 or 2 words in the chat a quality of how this world would look like. if we get it right. So if you please would like to put it in the chat and I'll read it out then. We can enjoy together. Natural long-term thinking and caring. Yeah, that's an important one. Long-term thinking. Some people in the indigenous people, when they make decisions, they think about 7 generations ahead. A sense of community, says Jane. Thank you, Jane. Beautiful. Katharina writes, a wholesome legacy, relieved. Zeynep, warm and friendly. Alan, people, our species, living in and with wisdom. Anybody else like to share something? Maybe a bit more concrete. What have you seen? Have you seen an image or humbler humans, not forgetful of their interrelationality with species and planet? Thanks, Richard. Yeah, everybody's done, and we will close the chat. The beauty, yeah, there's one more coming. Oh, more images. Image clean, colorful, smiles, loves, flowers, green carrion. What's a green carrion, Katrina?
No, I meant green and carillon, which is the music that sometimes, but then
Yeah.
the typing got in my way.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Carillon, yeah, thank
And
you.
I also hear music when
Yeah.
I have that
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, it's beautiful. A different relationship, writes Jane, to food and the land. That's very important to get more rooted again with the earth, more connected. Actually, our food consumption is one of the big contributors to climate change. Teresa, different way of moving our bodies, not cars by fueled by petrol. Yeah. So if you look at this, I mean, we know that we can do this. This is a big part of who we are and who we can be. And it's not far away to actually realize that. It's not something more than human to be able to live like that and we know these values and this beauty. So it's not a far cry to have a vision. That's an important thing because we need vision to keep us going, what we're doing it for. Nothing wrong about dreaming about for to know where you want to go. Kev comes up with a later contribution image, a city that was intertwined with the rainforest. That's a beautiful image. The city intertwined with the rainforest. It's a bit already the case in Rio de Janeiro. I've been there, and then you go turn the corner, and then you're all of a sudden in a rainforest. Understanding that less was always more, and slower is always deeper. How true is that? So actually, it's close by. It's not so far away. Thank you for your contributions. And do you notice how this feels actually? You know, it's nourishing a vision is not only about direction, which we need, but also about this uplifting and energy creating activity. Feels good, and it also feels connected. And we've only, took 5 or 10 minutes to focus on this. This is only a beginning. So understanding that less was always more and slower is always deeper. That's a beautiful note to end this this visualization on. Yeah, and also I would like to give some more minutes for possible questions. But I would like to finish with a quote from Barack Obama. He famously said, "We are the first generation to feel the effect of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it." Last generation that can protect the future for all the generations after us, because this is not for something from 10 years from now or 20 years. The effects are going to stay for multiple number of generations. We're the last generation that can do something about it. That speaks to quite a responsibility, doesn't it? And we as practitioners, we are so blessed that we have mindfulness, the superpower that helps us to process emotions in a healthy way and to actually see them first and then to work with them, to stay out a bit more of reactivity, and that we have learned to connect with these supporting, nourishing practices, which also come from mindfulness training and mindfulness practice. So this gives us actually a very good starting position for wise answers to the climate crisis. And we as mindfulness practitioners, we have a lot to give to this topic. Let's not forget that. On that note, I would like to stop my talking for a moment and maybe open the microphone for anybody who has any questions or things to share what came up. We have 15 minutes left. We can end with a small meditation, but we can also just end with some sharings or discussion with a small group. So whenever you want to say or share something, please open the mic and say what you like to say.
Rob, I'd like to congratulate you on the program and your work. It comes across from you today so heartfelt and meaningful. I find the shuttling that you guided us through in the meditation to be really interesting. I have a question. If there's anything that you might share from people who've gone through the program, who've discovered like actionable steps that they could take, if there's anything that stands out where people have expressed how they may move through the world to enable the vision that they come up with.
Yeah. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And I'd like to say two things. A very practical example is, for example, I spoke to somebody who finished the program just 2 weeks ago today. I always have interviews after the course. And she said that she's having these conversations about what's happening much more with people than before the training. So she was traveling a lot with public transport and sitting in trains, and she was meeting people and then seeing the windmills outside or having the weather conditions. But what she said, what touched me most was that she actually did it in a more natural and relaxed way, not so much tense that she needed to change the opinion of the other, or she was like a holy warrior trying to change other people. but it somehow came from her in a more natural way. And so she could be more authentic in the conversations, be more herself. And she had much more pleasure and learning from it herself, but also there was more impact on the other persons. And she said, it always almost comes natural to me now. And that's I feel like a big change, because it's not an easy topic to land on, especially in such situations with strangers. And the other thing is that that's also something we find people learn so much actually about the complexity of the situation, of the crisis, that actually after the training they often need some extra time to reorient about, we learn about individual action and systemic action. We learn about all these levels of how things work, that the crisis is not just about warming, but also about extinction and about pollution, etc. That they really, and that we also teach about that the action needs to not come from your reactive anger, but from your caring heart, that it actually needs some time to sink in, to reorient yourself. What kind of action is really fitting to my personality and my life and my position in life? Which actually is, I'm also happy with that, because if people would go very fast to very visible actions in order to, which I tend to call sometimes unripe actions, that they actually, then often it's motivated by getting your own climate emotions away. And then in the end, you get frustrated quite easily if it doesn't happen soon enough. So yeah, and we're actually thinking, that's good that you remind me of that, of offering a follow-up process, which is much slower, like a year long with about 10 or 8 meetings, and then actually guiding people on this trajectory, which is actually a reorientation, like, how can I be motivated with this new motivation? How can I relate, how can I reorganize my life that I can give energy and path and time dedicate to action, and what can it be according to what I like, what I'm good at, and what the world needs. And that's this is more about an awareness program and really processing and getting in balance with the situation. But then there's a whole other path actually opening, like, how can I relate in an organic way with which to me, and also makes me feel is with my deeper insight okay for me to relate with this topic. So yeah, we're still looking at that.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you, Alan.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Colin.
I was just wondering, because I know you've been working on this program for a bit, if you had any thoughts on how you have decided to shape the balance between presenting the raw difficulty and the way to be with the difficulty. Because the raw difficulty is so, on one way, overwhelming. But at the same time, I've noticed just now while you were speaking out, it's just refreshing to have someone just speak, this is what we're finding, this is where we're heading. So actually having clarity on that without getting too heavy and sinking in pessimism. So how was your process of thinking been about that?
Yeah. So a typical session is 2.5 hours. And then we start with some meditation and some spiritual contemplation to sort of open up the horizon, open up the heart. And after that, we have an information block of about 10 minutes, max 15 minutes, when we really dive into the reality of, for example, pollution or whatever, or tipping points. That can also one. And that's really right on the most straightforward information I can find about this topic. And then actually the rest of the session, so the rest of the 1.5 hours is dedicated to relate to that. First, we start with the contemplation to see how it moves within you. Then we come into a sharing, and then we move to some opposite antagonal activity like joy or awe to open up again the mind. So we make this, in Dutch we call it lemniscaat. We go there and then we go back again to balance out the session. So, and because actually there are 12 sessions, typically we have 3 full days and 3 half day sessions. So we have a lot of, we can cover the big part of the whole problem, including the global south, global north situation. And then to contemplate and share about it. And of course, we have in the week after, we have reflection sessions also. So we have individual one, we pair people up so they connect again to reflect. So there's about, let's say, 75%, which is digestion and nourishment, and 15 or 20%, which is actually taking in bit by bit, in small bits, parts of the whole image. Yeah. So that's how I've tried to find a balance, and it seems to work out well. And every individual story is differently. There are people experiencing difficult moments, but nobody dropped out as far as now because of, it was too heavy. And, that I think it's 65% or 66% of the participants reported they were actually looking forward to the next session. Can you imagine when there will be another aspect put in the spotlight and really expose? And sometimes we also use illustrations like pictures or short documentaries of 20, 30 seconds just to really open it, so we don't sugarcoat then anything. But then, of course, when you have a lot of time and a lot of practices, we don't make it away, but we don't make it go away. But we take time to processes and to actually to relate to it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Koen. There's a question in the chat. From Teresa. Rob, could you please share a bit more about the actual structure of the course? 12 weeks is a big commitment, yes. Well, I started with the idea that I wanted to have a hybrid training, also to reduce on traveling, but I do want to have physical meetings to have this Sangha felt sense of being together. So that's why I came out actually with a starting day, which is a full day, usually a Saturday, 10 to 5. And then there are 3 online sessions, typically on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, from 7 to 9:30, so it's 2.5 hours weekly. And then there's the middle day, and then we go deeper and we make the switch also to action orientation. And then there's 3 more sessions online weekly, and then we have the closing day, which is more about vision and future, etc., and reconnecting. So yes, it is 12 sessions, but in those full days, there are always packed 2 sessions. So you could spread them out over 12 weeks, which would make a long, slower pace. and it seems to work out. And next year we're going to really present it as a 6-day intensive, which is going to be really an adventure to see if we, if we are in a retreat setting in nature and going through this, starting every day again. It's really, it's a new adventure to ways. We're finding out ways to relate to this predicament, this existential difficult situation. So thank you for asking. Yeah. Thank you, Ben. Oh yeah,
Rob,
Koen, so just one moment. The intensive is coming in June, beginning of June next year, in Germany, near Freiburg, in the south of Germany, and we have a beautiful retreat setting in the Black Woods. And it will be organized by Arbor, which is a German mindfulness publication and organization center. So if you want to know more about that, connect with the Arbor website or go to my website, robbrandsma.nl. There's an English page also. There's an English side of that site, and there you can find all the details also about this program, actually. robbrandsma.nl.
I was just responding
Yeah.
to because Kev in the chat he shows that he's doing walks in nature and nature immersion. There's some people also doing this Shirin-yoku.
Yeah.
And as you said, you close with dancing.
Yeah.
I read on LinkedIn, Kev, that you do some biodanza. So that's that's specific dancing according to that. So we exchange that in the chat, but for all of you to see. There's one thing that I would like to ask, if that's okay. When we look at the brain that is so fond of the bad news and the difficulty, I'm inspired by what Rick Hansen does by inspiring us to really actively connect with the good. And on that topic, Hans Rosling, with his book on factfulness and his website on factfulness, and also Thomas, I think it's called Thomas Unerstal, if I spell that correctly, who talks about factfulness in sustainability. Is there something where you connect to those things that are working well to inspire us and to elevate the mood on that I already felt in that small exercise where you leaded us away from a natural catastrophe to the sensing experience? But maybe it could be enhanced by connecting to something that is going well according to facts.
According to facts, yeah. Well, what we do a lot is, I already mentioned that we connect with our inner creativity. Awe and wonder is a big part of suggestion or practicing that throughout the week, which is really opening your mind and taking it out of our negativity setting of the mind. Unfortunately, if you look at the facts about the eco-crisis, especially today or these days, if you want to balance things out, and sometimes when you look at the positive things, they you only get more depressed because they don't really have any impact on where all the physical developments are going. However, there may be a big movement in its way, a cultural shift, which is not visible above the surface yet. So many people are connecting around this. The young the people are much more aware about the future and the ecology consciousness. So that's something we also take aboard in the vision in the last day. There may be also underneath the surface, what we read in the headlines today, another shift be going on, which is actually a shift in consciousness and coming back to what is really core value to us, which is a lot translated in NGO work of NGOs and young people coming up for their rights. And but actually, in the what's changing right now in terms of turning the developments of pollution, extinction, and global warming down, it doesn't really has much impact on what we see in the scientific reports yet. So that's not maybe the most wise thing to focus on. However, on a consciousness shift, which of course is close to the work we do, that may be very impactful. Yeah. Was that helpful for you, Katarina? I have an answer.
Yes, I'm chewing on it.
Yeah.
What I feel is that I see many people close to me who are engaged in something that might not take us away from the tipping point, but because they're engaged, they might also vote differently when there are political votes. And if they are engaged, and that inspires them to vote differently, to vote for people who will take different political decisions, that can shift. Not whether we take away the plastic and the paper and those small things, but if those small things inspire a different political behavior or a different consumption behavior, then that could make an impact. Not the small things. No.
Small things. Thank you.
Well, it's time. I don't mind to go on, but we have already said goodbye to Magdalena. I feel very encouraged. Also, the things that I saw in the chat. So we only practiced a bit, but I can really, really believe what you said, that people come out energized and more motivated. And the feedback that you gave about your students, I can feel that I would experience that. Yes. The information of Arbor Institute, we can maybe put that in the post that is on the eamba website, because there was at least one question here in the chat when this is taking place. And then I think it's not advertisement. We can safely publish that on the website. And I'm looking to Teresa as an official board member. So thank you for sharing this with us, and thank you for showing the direction of where we can go and what we can learn. And
You're
we
very
will.
welcome, Katarina. Yeah, it was a pleasure really to share. It's always a pleasure to share this with people who also feel concerned and show up actually. I mean, 80% of the work is actually showing up, and that's what you did tonight. So thank you for that. It was lovely to work with you. And if you like to read a bit more, go to my website. There's more information about this program, also in English, robbrandsma.nl. And we will put, and there you can also find the address for the training in English, and there will be one in Dutch, by the way, in March. So yeah, was a pleasure, was mine, and thank you again for the invitation, Katarina.
And Rob, could you stay for a minute after we close,
Sure.
Please?
Sure.
Yes. And on that note that Rob said are the ones who showed up, I really salute you that you showed up. You didn't register, but you showed up. So we have many more people, at least 28 registered, who wanted to be here and who will have to do with the recording. So thank you for being here. It's connective and it's motivating to be together. As you said, it's all about community, and that's not only for sustainability, that's for so many things. Have a wonderful evening and hope to see you back. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.